The dying desert on Zephyra. The sun burned like fire in the sky of Zephyra. It was a dead world, full of hot wind and endless yellow sand. There were no trees, no rivers, only rocks, broken ships, and silence. Jack Walker, a human explorer, walked alone in the heat. His spacesuit was dirty, and his water bottle was almost empty. He had been walking for 2 days since his ship crashed. The radio was broken. No help was coming. Suddenly, Jack stopped. Something moved in the distance. A small figure running toward him across the sand. He raised his hand to block the sun. It was not another human. It was an alien. She was young, maybe his age. Her skin was pale blue and shimmered in the light. Long white hair flew behind her as she ran. She wore a torn robe and carried something wrapped in cloth. Her face was full of panic. Jack gripped his tool knife. He didn't know if she was dangerous, but when she reached him, she didn't attack. She fell to her knees and held out the bundle in her arms. "Please," she begged in a soft, shaking voice. "Water. Please help them." Jack looked down. In her arms were 2 small creatures. Their skin was thin, like paper. Their eyes were closed. They were alive, but just barely. Their tiny chests moved slowly up and down. They made weak sounds, almost like crying. Jack's throat was dry. His lips were cracked. He had 1 bottle left, just 1. He looked at her again. The alien girl had tears in her eyes. "I can survive, but they can't. They are too weak. They will die. Please." Jack wanted to say no. He needed that water to stay alive. But something inside him stopped him. Maybe it was the way she was holding them. Maybe it was the way those creatures looked like newborn animals from Earth. He pulled out his last water pod. It was half full. He unscrewed the top. The smell of clean water hit his nose. It felt like gold. Jack bent down and poured a few drops into the mouth of the first creature. It twitched. Then it opened its tiny mouth and drank. The second one did the same. He kept giving them little sips. His hands shook, but he didn't stop. The alien girl gasped. You are giving it all?" Jack nodded slowly. "They need it more than me." When the bottle was empty, Jack stood up. Then everything went dark. He fell to the sand with a thud. Time passed. When Jack opened his eyes, it was night. The sky was full of stars, and Zephyra's 2 moons were shining above. He was inside a cave. A fire burned near the wall. His lips were still dry, but he was alive. Someone placed a damp cloth on his forehead. It was her. "You woke up," she said softly. Jack blinked. "How? Am I not dead?" "You almost were," she said. "But I found water plants. I cut them open and gave you drops. I also covered your body with shade cloth. The sun here kills fast." He looked around. The 2 small creatures were curled beside him, breathing slowly, their skin no longer so dry. Jack smiled weakly. "They're okay," she nodded. "You saved them. I don't understand. Why did you help?" Jack coughed. "I don't know. It just felt right." The alien girl was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "No human has ever helped my kind before. Not without wanting something in return." Jack chuckled. "Well, I guess I'm different." She smiled back for the first time. "My name is Alia," she said. "I'm Jack," he replied. They sat in silence, listening to the small fire crackle. Outside, the wind howled through the desert. Then Alia looked at him seriously. "You should know," she said, "those creatures are not pets. They are sacred, ancient. If they die, something terrible will happen to this planet." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, there was a strange noise outside, like a distant hum, and then a thump, as if something landed nearby. Alia stood up, alert. Her eyes narrowed. "They're here." "Who?" Jack asked. She looked toward the cave entrance, her face pale. The hunters. They found us. The last drop, the fire was dying. Cold wind blew into the cave. Jack sat up slowly. His body was weak, and every bone ached. He saw Alia standing at the cave entrance, staring into the darkness outside. Her pale blue skin glowed under the twin moons of Zephyra. "They're getting closer," she whispered without turning back. Jack tried to speak, but his throat felt like sandpaper. He noticed the two small creatures curled beside him, breathing softly. They were alive. He looked at the empty water pod lying near the wall. That was all he had. He had given it up. To save strangers. A strange sound echoed in the distance, like metal claws dragging across stone. Jack forced himself to stand. "Who are they?" he asked. Alia's voice was low. "Hunters. They don't care about life. They want the sacred ones, for their skin, their bones, their power. They call it sport." She turned to Jack with fear in her eyes. "They will kill anything in their way." Suddenly, the little creatures began to glow softly, blue light pulsing from their tiny bodies. Jack blinked. "What's happening?" "They are afraid," Alia said, "and they are trying to warn us." Outside, footsteps crunched the sand. Alia grabbed a cloth bag and gently placed the glowing creatures inside. "We must leave." Jack nodded. But as they moved toward the back of the cave, his legs gave out. He fell hard. I'm too weak." Alia looked at him, then at the bag. "I won't leave you behind." She pulled a thin knife from her belt and, without a word, slashed her palm. Blue blood oozed out. Jack's eyes widened. "What? Are you—" She held her hand over a stone cup and let the blood drip inside. Then she mixed it with the juice from a cactus-like plant she had stored earlier. "Drink," she said, handing it to him. Jack hesitated. "That's your blood. It's sacred to my kind," she said. "It gives strength only to those who are worthy." Jack drank. The taste was strange, sweet and burning at the same time. Within moments, warmth rushed through his body like fire. His heartbeat grew stronger. He stood again. "That was insane, but I feel alive." Alia gave a small smile. "Now run." They escaped through a narrow tunnel at the back of the cave. The passage was tight and rocky, lit only by the glow of the creatures in her bag. Behind them, voices shouted. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Jack and Alia emerged on the other side of the hill. Below them was a long dune, and beyond that, what looked like ancient ruins half buried in sand. "That place," Alia said. "It was once a temple. If we reach it, they can't follow." Jack looked at her. "Why?" She whispered. "Because it's protected by old spirits. The hunters fear them." They slid down the dune together, running for the ruins. Sand flew around their boots. Jack felt new energy in his legs. Whatever she gave him was working. But just before they reached the broken temple walls, a beam of red light blasted the sand beside them. "Down!" Jack shouted. They rolled behind a rock. A ship was hovering. Above, black, armored, and armed with heat-tracking cannons. A voice crackled from a speaker. "Surrender the sacred beasts. The bounty is high. You may live if you hand them over." Alia clutched the bag to her chest. "Never!" Jack stood up, raising both hands. Alia grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Trust me." Jack stepped out slowly, hands still raised. "I'm just a human. I don't even know what's in that bag." The red beam aimed at him again. "But I know this," Jack continued. "I saw those creatures nearly die, and I gave my last drop of water to save them. So if you want them—" His voice grew colder. "You'll have to kill me first." The hunters hesitated. The voice spoke again, slower this time. "You gave your water?" Jack nodded. "Every drop." A long silence followed. Then something strange happened. The ship turned slightly, and after a moment, it flew away, vanishing into the black sky. Jack turned to Alia, stunned. "Why did they leave?" Alia looked at him, eyes wide. Because only one thing makes a hunter walk away. What? A human who acts like a guardian. Beneath twin moons, the moonlight revealed something terrifying. Jack opened his eyes to the glow of Zephyr's twin moons shining down through broken stone. He wasn't inside a cave anymore. He was lying in the middle of an ancient temple, surrounded by statues of tall, eyeless creatures carved from dark stone. Alia stood beside him, holding a glowing spear made of bone. Her breath was fast, her hands shook, but her eyes stayed locked on the shadows ahead. Jack sat up, still dizzy. "Where are we?" Alia whispered. "A sacred place. It hides those who protect life. The hunters won't step in here. But something else might." Before Jack could ask what that meant, one of the statues moved. Its head slowly turned toward them. Jack jumped to his feet and grabbed a rock. "That thing's alive!" Alia raised her hand. "Don't attack it. These spirits don't speak with words, they test hearts." The stone creature took a step forward. It was huge, twice Jack's height. Its mouth didn't open, but Jack heard a sound in his head. Not a voice. A question. "Why did you give your water to those who were not your kind?" Jack felt a pressure inside his mind. His memories replayed. Him on Earth, watching people ignore the weak. Him walking away from war, him feeling empty, lost. He took a deep breath. "Because I was tired of doing nothing." The pressure faded. The statue stopped. Then it slowly bowed and returned to stillness. Alia looked at Jack, surprised. "It accepted you." Jack wiped sweat from his forehead. "Great. Now what?" Before she could answer, the bag holding the small creatures began to shake. A soft hum filled the air. The creatures floated into the air and began to glow brighter, brighter than before. Alia gasped. "They're awakening." The two creatures floated between Jack and Alia, glowing like stars. Suddenly, Jack felt something touch his mind. Memories. That weren't his. He saw Zephyr before the desert, full of rivers, forests, and golden skies. The two creatures were guardians of life, sleeping for thousands of years. But someone had poisoned the world. Someone who now wanted the guardians dead. Jack pulled back, breathing hard. "What was that?" "They showed you the truth," Alia said. Zephyr wasn't always dry. The hunters, they're part of a larger force. They want this planet dead so they can mine its bones. Jack looked at the glowing creatures. "But they're still weak. How do we protect them?" Suddenly, a rumble shook the ground. The temple cracked. Stones fell from above. Alia shouted, "They found us!" Jack grabbed the bag. The creatures didn't resist. They stayed calm in his arms. "We can't fight them here," Alia said. "But there is a place. The heart of the desert, a lake buried in sand. If we reach it, the guardians can restore it. They can bring water back to this world." Jack narrowed his eyes. "Then we go." The journey began under the twin moons. Jack and Alia moved fast, staying low between rocks and dunes. The stars above blinked like watching eyes. Jack asked, "Why did the spirits test me, not you?" Alia gave a small, sad smile. "Because I already failed." Jack looked at her. "What do you mean?" "My people once protected the guardians, but we grew afraid. We gave them up to save ourselves. I ran. I was the last to hold them, but I let others die for me." Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "But you're here now. That matters." A soft roar echoed through the desert behind them. Alia's face turned pale. "They're releasing the desert beasts. Hunters don't want us dead, they want us shredded." Jack gripped a sharp rock and handed it to her. "We keep moving." Alia looked at the creatures in his arms. "They trust you now. More than they trust me." Jack gave her a hard look. "Then let's make sure they live." The creatures that shouldn't exist, the sand started to breathe. Jack froze. Beneath his boots, the ground was rising and falling. Slow, deep movements like the desert itself was alive. He looked at Alia. "Is that an earthquake?" Her face turned pale. "No, It's waking up. Before he could ask what she meant, the sand behind them exploded. A massive beast burst out of the dune, roaring like 1,000 drums. Its body was long like a snake, with armored scales that shimmered in the moonlight. A mouthful of jagged teeth snapped toward the sky. Jack stepped back, clutching the glowing bag tighter. That's not a desert beast. That's a monster. It's called a sandworm, Alia whispered, terrified. The hunters woke it. They want it to eat the guardians. The two small creatures inside the bag started to glow stronger, as if sensing the danger. Their bodies pulsed with energy. The sandworm turned toward them and hissed. Its eyes were deep black holes that sucked in light. It began slithering over the dunes straight at them. Jack looked around. There was no cover, nowhere to hide. Alia grabbed his arm. Run! Head to the Crystal Canyon! They sprinted across the sand, each footstep sinking deep. Behind them, the monster howled and chased. It moved fast, too fast for its size. The ground trembled with each of its movements, just when Jack thought they'd be swallowed. A narrow crack opened in the desert floor. Alia jumped in without thinking. Jack followed. They slid down a long slope of glassy rock. The world turned cold, dark, and full of echoes. They landed hard in a canyon made of blue crystal walls. Everything shimmered like ice, but the air was warm. Jack stood up, his knees shaking. What is this place? Alia looked up at the glowing canyon. This is where the guardians were born. The two small creatures floated out of the bag and hovered above the ground. Their bodies glowed brighter than ever before. The crystals responded, flashing with light and waves that followed their movement. Jack stepped closer. There, connected to the land? Yes, Alia said. They're not just creatures, they are memory. They are hope. Jack stared as the guardians floated to the center of the canyon. They hovered together, touching foreheads. Then something incredible happened. A wave of light shot outward, bright blue and soft white, washing over the canyon walls. And suddenly Jack saw everything. He saw the past. He saw a green Zephyra full of water, trees, and flying beasts. He saw ancient cities built by Alia's people. He saw the guardians floating above lakes healing the land. Then the sky turned black. Fire rained from above. Ships full of hunters, pirates, and destroyers attacked. They poisoned the water, cut down the forests, killed the guardians except two who were hidden, and now carried in Jack's arms. Jack gasped and dropped to one knee. The vision ended. Alia was breathing fast. You saw it too? Jack nodded. They weren't pets. They were protectors. And now they're the last. Suddenly, a loud growl echoed down the canyon. A shape dropped from above. It was a hunter, tall, armored, and carrying a heat blade. His helmet had red eyes that glowed in the dark. He stepped forward slowly. Hand them over, he said in a deep, mechanical voice. Or you both die here. Jack stood up. I've had enough of your kind. The hunter raised his blade. So has the galaxy. Before the hunter could strike, the guardians floated between them. They flared with light. The hunter screamed. His armor cracked. His mask melted. He fell to the ground, unconscious. Alia gasped. They defended you. Jack looked at his arms. The light from the guardians was now inside him. His skin shimmered, with soft lines of blue energy. They've bonded with you, Alia whispered. You're more than just human now. Jack didn't speak. He looked down the canyon. More shadows were coming. The hunters weren't done yet. But neither was he. Hunters from the stars. The stars fell like fire. From the dark sky above Zephyra, silver ships rained down, silent, fast, and deadly. One by one, they landed around the ancient canyon, kicking up clouds of sand and ash. Inside the crystal canyon, Jack felt the ground shake. They're here, he said, his voice low. Alia stepped beside him, more than I expected. Above them, glowing red lights moved in the sky. The hunter ships circled like vultures. A deep hum filled the air as metal doors opened. Shadows moved inside. They're surrounding us, Jack said. They know the Guardians are awake now, Aelia replied. They want to end it before the light spreads. Jack looked down at the two floating creatures. They glowed brightly, their tiny bodies trembling. They're still weak, he said. They can't fight all of them, Aelia nodded. But you can slow them down. You carry their bond now. Jack's arm still shimmered with soft blue light. It pulsed in his veins, not like pain, but power. I'm not a soldier, he said. You don't need to be, Aelia whispered. You just need to care enough to stand. A horn blasted from the cliffside. The first hunter jumped down, landing hard on the crystal ground. His armor was black and jagged. His hands held twin plasma blades. Behind him, more hunters dropped. In lines, one after another, weapons ready. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. This was their hunt. Jack stepped forward. Wait, Aelia said, trying to stop him. He turned to her. If I don't hold them here, they'll reach you. And the Guardians won't survive another attack. You'll die, she said. Jack smiled. Maybe. But if they die, this whole planet dies too. Aelia clenched her fists. Then she reached into her robe and pulled out a small crystal shard. She pressed it into his hand. What is it? He asked. A piece of the old temple. The spirits once used it to blind their enemies. Speak to it. Only when you're ready. Jack nodded and ran toward the hunters. The first hunter rushed him, blades glowing hot. Jack dodged faster than before. The guardian light in his body gave him speed, vision, and strength he never knew he had. He grabbed a fallen stone and slammed it into the hunter's helmet. Sparks flew. Two more rushed in. Jack jumped off the wall, rolled, and smashed his elbow into one's chest plate. It cracked. The other stabbed forward, but Jack twisted and kicked the blade from its hand. But there were too many. Soon Jack was bleeding from his arm and shoulder. His breathing grew heavy. The blue light in his veins flickered. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crystal Aelia had given him. The hunters paused. They had seen that before, long ago. Jack raised it high. For Zephyra, he shouted. The crystal exploded in a flash of light. All the hunters screamed, covering their eyes. Their visors shattered. Their balance broke. Some dropped their weapons and fled into the dark. Back inside the canyon, Aelia used the moment to move the Guardians, deeper underground, to an ancient water chamber hidden under the crystals. She placed them in a pool of glowing liquid. Their bodies floated, and for the first time, they smiled. They're healing, she whispered. But they still need time. A loud crash echoed above. She ran to the edge and looked down. Jack was on his knees, still glowing, but barely, conscious. The crystal shard had turned black in his hand. 3 hunters stood around him, recovering. No! Aelia screamed. One hunter raised his blade, and suddenly, a beam of light burst from the pool below. The Guardians had risen again, awake, powerful and angry. They flew into the sky, their bodies now twice the size, wings of pure energy trailing behind them. The hunters backed away. The Guardians let out a single cry, and a shockwave of light spread in all directions. Every hunter ship in the sky shut down. Their engines failed. They dropped like stones, crashing into the sand. The hunters screamed and vanished into the dunes. The battle was over. Aelia ran to Jack and caught him before he fell. You did it, she whispered. No, he said weakly. We did. The human stand Jack was not breathing. The battlefield was silent, glowing with leftover energy from the Guardians. All around him, broken weapons and cracked helmets lay in the sand. The twin moons hung above like watchful eyes. Aelia held Jack in her arms, her fingers shaking as she touched his chest. No, please, she whispered. Breathe. But he didn't. The light in his body had faded. The blue lines that once shined across his skin were gone. She looked at the 2 Guardians floating beside her. Help him. You gave him your light. Take mine if you must. The Guardians blinked as if understanding. They hovered over Jack and pressed their glowing heads to his. A single spark passed between them. Then, Jack gasped. He coughed hard, his eyes wide. His body jerked like lightning had hit him. Alia cried, out in relief, and hugged him tightly. You came back. Jack coughed again. Remind me, not to fight alien hunters without breakfast. Alia laughed, wiping tears from her cheeks. You idiot. Brave idiot. They sat in the ruins of the canyon while the Guardians circled above. Light spread from their bodies into the sky, forming a wide blue beam that shot upward like a signal. What are they doing now? Jack asked. Alia looked at the beam. Calling. There may be others, hidden in far places, sleeping. This signal tells them Zephyra is still alive. Jack looked at the sand. What if the hunters return? They won't, she said. Not after what they saw. The Guardians woke up, and so did you. Jack smiled. I'm just a guy who gave his last water bottle. She shook her head. No, you stood between monsters and life. You chose hope. On this planet, that means everything. Suddenly, the sand rumbled again. Jack stood quickly. Not again. But this time it was different. From beneath the dunes, small springs of water began to rise. 1, then 2, then 10. The sand shifted as green vines pushed up from the cracks. Alia gasped. It's starting. The Guardians. They're healing the world. Later that night, Jack stood near a hill overlooking the desert. The once dead land now shimmered with blue light and soft clouds of mist. The two Guardians hovered high, painting the sky with lines of light like a new constellation. Alia walked up beside him, her hands behind her back. Jack looked at her. So, what now? She smiled. Now you must decide. Decide what? You've touched Zephyra's soul. The spirits accepted you. The Guardians saved you. You can stay and help rebuild, or return to your world. Jack looked at the stars. His old world was somewhere out there, cold, distant, full of people who didn't know or care about Zephyra. Then he looked down, at the land he helped save. The girl who risked everything, the creatures who trusted him with their lives. I don't think Earth needs me anymore, he said softly. But this place, maybe it does. Alia stepped closer. Then let me show you what we build together. She opened her hand, revealing a seed glowing with light. Jack took it gently. He smiled. Let's plant a future. Oasis of bond rain fell on Zephyra for the first time in 100 years. It was not loud rain. It was gentle, like soft hands touching the cracked desert soil. Steam rose from the hot ground. Flowers bloomed where only dust had lived before, and, in the middle of that quiet miracle, Jack Walker stood barefoot, planting a glowing seed with his own hands. Alia watched him with a smile. You're doing it wrong, she said. Jack looked up, dirt on his face. I'm not a farmer. I'm a crash survivor. She knelt beside him. Now you're more than that. The seed began to glow stronger, and within moments green vines pushed out of the ground. Small golden petals opened to the sky. A new life had begun. It had been 3 weeks since the battle. The hunters were gone. The Guardians had vanished, into the clouds, watching from above as the world healed. Streams now flowed where old paths once burned. The ruins had turned into shelter. Other survivors came out from hiding. Aelia's people, the few who still believed. And at the center of it all stood the oasis, fresh water, clean air, warm light, built where Jack gave his last drop. They named it Varakel in the old tongue. It meant the place of the human's gift. That evening, as stars filled the sky, a small celebration was held by the water. People lit glowing orbs that floated on the stream. Children laughed for the first time in years. Songs in strange languages filled the air, sweet and slow. Jack sat alone at the edge of the water looking at his reflection. He no longer saw a lost explorer. He saw someone who mattered. Alia sat beside him holding 2 cups of fruit nectar. For the human who gave his last water, she said, offering him a drink. He smiled, and for the alien who gave him everything else. They clinked the cups softly. A moment passed in silence. Then Aelia reached out and touched his arm. I want you to know something. Jack turned toward her. My people believe in soul oaths. A sacred bond formed not by blood or power, but by choice. You gave us life, you chose to stay, the Guardians chose you. She placed her other hand on his. Zephyra doesn't just want you here, Jack, it needs you, and I do too. Jack's heart beat faster. I never thought I'd find peace in a place like this, he said softly. But now I can't imagine leaving. She leaned in close. Then stay. At sunrise, Jack and Aelia walked to the heart of the oasis. There, on a tall stone, the Guardians appeared. Just light now, shaped like memory. They didn't speak, but Jack felt their warmth in his chest. A voice filled his mind. Thank you, human. You gave when all others took. You saved what others forgot. The Guardians hovered above the new lake, and from their light, thousands of tiny seeds floated into the air, flying in every direction. They would bring life to every corner of Zephyra again. Aelia looked at Jack. It's done. No, he said, smiling. It's just beginning. That night, under the same twin moons where it all began, Jack and Aelia stood on a balcony made of old stone and new wood. Below them, the oasis shined. Around them, people laughed. The planet had found its heartbeat again. And in that quiet moment, Jack whispered, Who would have thought? All this from a single bottle of water? Aelia smiled. No, all this from a human who chose to care. The end.